In amongst the absolute chaos of the average transfer window, Daniel Farke has just had a fairly significant interview with Men in Blazers. After all, you go on an international tour to the US, one of the bigger US-based football podcasts is going to have a word with you, but there is a lot for Leeds United fans to learn from this and get an idea of the direction in pre-season, what sort of things have been learned from last season, potentially the direction for this season, and ultimately learn a little bit more about what's going on. So let's have a little bit of a dive into it. But before we do so, I'd hugely appreciate you liking the video, subscribing to the channel, all the standard stuff. The like button's down here, subscribe's over here. I've just realised I'm on the wrong sort of camera view. Let's switch to that one. There's no live chat, this isn't live. But let's get into it. So, first off, there was a little bit of discussion around pre-season, and the quotes in this specific area were quite interesting to me because they show a level of sort of competitiveness that I didn't quite expect. Specifically, he said, "It's important to work on physical strength, integrate the new players, tactical work because you have more time to do this than in the season, and work on the culture and values. And to create this winning mentality, we don't just not want to lose, we want to win." Sorry, I got that phrasing completely wrong, but the focus is on winning rather than just not losing in pre-season, which I completely respect. The idea that you go out there with the idea that, yeah, we will just beat Liverpool and we will beat Sunderland, and sure, we lost to Wrexham, but that's the first match of pre-season, that doesn't count as much. But you set the tone, you set a winning culture, which is absolutely massive. And in addition to that, I think one of the relatively underrated things is the amount of time that you have to do tactical work. It's very easy to forget, but our switch to 3 at the back last season happened in the middle of the season. There wasn't much time to actively say, right, okay guys, this is what we're doing now, this is how we're going to be able to drill it. It was just a case of, shit, 4 at the back isn't working anymore, big switch. So that is fairly important. We all knew the sort of integrating new players stuff. The reason I'm not particularly worried about Trafford not being in just yet is because integrating a goalkeeper is an absolute piece of piss. I say this as a goalkeeper that swaps teams every 6 months. But beyond that, it's this sort of standard stuff around what pre-season is. And he also had a little bit of a chat about early last season. We all know that Daniel Farke's sides are fairly sort of slow to get into a football season, but he did address this, saying, "Maybe when I was younger it would have affected me, but I stay calm now, and if you can't handle the heat, don't take the job. Expectations are so high at Leeds, it's so passionate, we are one city club, so that's rare. You have a great responsibility and pressure. During these times, no one wants a manager who's ranting and raving on the sidelines." Which is another good point. I think there's a very clear sort of dichotomy between Daniel Farke and Jesse Marsch, and I've had people complain at me for bringing up Jesse Marsch a lot of times, but the specific line that was mentioned on no one wanting a manager ranting and raving on the sidelines, Jesse Marsch very specifically said in a press conference that part of the reason that he's so loud and gobby is that he thinks that it will pressure referees a little bit and it will make sure that more decisions go his way. Which, sure, is fine. If you want to do a little bit of a psychological trick and think that you can get one over on the referee, you do you. But it didn't work, really, at all. And I think the relative calm from Daniel Farke is a far better alternative because you're able to get your message across far better. You're going to listen to someone that is talking to you calmly more than you are someone that's shouting at you, or at the very least, more's going to go in from someone that is talking calmly at you as opposed to shouting, which is good. Like, when it comes to YouTube content, as an example, you're more likely to listen to someone that is talking to you in a measured manner than just screaming and shouting and ranting. Sure, the second guy might be a little bit more entertaining and you might get more views, but that's because people want to see emotional breakdowns on YouTube. You don't really learn anything that way, and I think that's ultimately the best possible approach for Daniel Farke to take. And he then went on to discussing the change to 3 at the back against Manchester City, saying that the formation was well prepared, the players already knew their roles, and he's not particularly married to base formations, which is sort of key. Like, the fact that we change when we're in possession compared to out of possession anyway sort of indicates that. But noting that the formation was well prepared says that in that time that we were spending during the season, when it looked like we weren't really doing anything to change, there was preparation for that switch to 5 at the back going in. It's not a formation that you can change like that. You need to tell people what their role is going to be. You need to adjust things fairly significantly, so that will have been trained for a while before it was implemented, and it's good to have some level of confirmation on that one. Then goes on to say, everyone talks about the City game because the change of formation had a big impact, but we've been preparing that for a long time. That indicates the sort of like long-term view that Daniel Farke takes, which is sort of important. And then we get into stuff on the 49ers and various signings and what it means for the club going forward. So on the 49ers, specifically, he says he takes inspiration from outside the club, other sports, other businesses, all that kind of stuff. He followed NBA quite a bit. But in essence, he's happy to collaborate with the 49ers because he understands the sort of cross-pollination that goes on between sports, which is good to have that level of understanding. It means that you are, sorry for that hiccup, it means that you are ultimately benefiting from the lessons that are learned in different places, which is sort of key. But then goes on to various things about signings, and he starts with Harry Wilson by saying that he's improved every year in his career, brings a lot of creativity with his passing, good finisher, big step up in the offensive threat, but also he sort of mentions, not by name, but fairly loosely, he goes into mentioning sort of the no dickhead rule by saying that he's a fantastic human being and pretty picky with the characters we bring into the group, which is something that we already knew. In the instance of Jed Spence, for example, he did something behind the scenes that showed something of his character that Daniel Farke didn't like, and then it was a case of, right, you're gone. When it came to Charlie Cresswell agitating for more minutes in a way that Farke clearly felt inappropriate, he went, all right, okay, off you go. There is a fine line to be tread between allowing people to say what they are feeling and sort of stamping down on that, and I think it comes down to the attitude and the way that they approach it. But for me, I think that's a very, very positive addition to the club, and it means that when I look at Arsenal at the moment, for example, I know they are massively successful and all that kind of stuff, but I think a signing like Vinicius Jr. that is rumoured is potentially going to do vastly more harm than it is good, because he seems to be a player with a very, very big ego that does not particularly want to go away. So being able to avoid those ego-driven situations at Leeds is going to be key, and that's sort of mentioned a little bit in the next sort of question as well, in which he says, when asked about the importance of a keeper, he says you need a top striker, top centre-back, top central midfielder, and the goalkeeper are crucial positions within the bones of a team. You can take a few risks with the wingers, but maybe not these positions, and that also speaks to character as well. You'll notice that up the centre of the pitch, the players that Daniel Farke has are the ones that you can seemingly trust on a more personal level. So Trafford I'm going to ignore for now, because that's not really part of what I'm discussing here. But Meslier, as an example, was part of that sort of captaincy circle. Struijk was part of the captaincy group. Joe Rodon has captained in pre-season. Ethan Ampadu is the club captain. Clearly, there's a lot of trust in Dominic Calvert-Lewin because, again, he was signed in part for his personality, the fact that he was driven enough to keep on training during the off-season. I'm not saying the players that we've got at wing-back are knobheads, or the players on the wings are knobheads, but it's more a point of there is very clearly an emphasis on good character within the squad, and I really, really like that. And there is also the discussion on improving the level of quality in the side, which potentially indicates why we were looking at a move for Shea Charles. He is seen as a player with a very, very high ceiling, so have a look at him and he can improve one of those sort of spine of the side positions. Same applies for Muharemovic. Very nearly broke the club transfer record because he's a very, very good player. And I can see us breaking that transfer record for Trafford comfortably to make sure we get the quality that we need. And finally, there was a little bit of chat on Leeds United's future. And this is one of the more reassuring answers because it's an answer that's sort of bedded in realism. Specifically, and I've gotten these quotes because I listened to the interview but I didn't take enough notes, so thankfully at the Adelites, Adonis Store, tweeted out about it, so I'm just borrowing the quotes from there. But he said on Leeds United's future, we can't overtake clubs like Man City and Arsenal in just a few years with individual quality. Sure, you might be able, this is just added by me, you might be able to beat teams like that from time to time. Like, I think we should have got more than we did against Manchester City last season, for example. But you can do it on a sort of wider tactical level. But he does say we have to go year to year. You have to first focus on the top half, then one day Europe, and then, in theory, beyond that. I'm more focused on the day-to-day, but you also have to have a long-term, clear vision where you're heading towards. This echoes what he said in the last press conference of last season, where he effectively challenged the 49ers to say, look, we've completed the first long-term plan. where's the next long-term plan? And to me, this indicates that that long-term plan is now in place. The fact that he's still in his job is indicating to me that that next long-term plan is in place, because I don't think he would have stuck around if that wasn't there, which is ultimately very, very, very positive. It's good to have the board on board. It's good to have the manager on board. It's good to have the players on board, which you can see very clearly is the case, because the amount of dedication we got from those players, not only last season, but in pre-season already, pulling that back against Liverpool, shows that they're not just sides that are able to half-arse it. They are not players that will go, we tried. They will push, and they will push, and they will eventually get what they deserve, which is wonderful. But whilst I think that's wonderful, not everyone will. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, please like it, subscribe, become a channel member, all that fun kind of stuff. I'm going to end that there. I will probably see you with the stream at some point today, but we'll find out. Hope you enjoyed. And I will see you all later. Toodaloo. Also, important note. To the person that said that they watched my videos during breakfast, I hope you enjoyed your Weetabix. Anyway, ta-ra.